Welcome to our first opportunity to look at decimal place value. Decimals may sound a little intimidating. They're definitely a big kid's skill, but I can guarantee you already know more about decimals than you think you do. The background on this page should be a hint. Let's check that out. Today we're going to answer the questions, what are decimals, and how do decimal tenths and hundredths work? Well, like I said, you already know a lot more than you think you do. Here are some basic vocabulary words you're going to need to add to your notebook. When I'm done talking about each one, if you will pause the video and jot them into the next available page in your notebook. So what's a decimal? A decimal is a number that uses place value and a decimal point to show values less than 1, like tenths and hundredths. A decimal point, you've seen them before, it's a period. We put those in decimal numbers to separate the whole number part from the decimal part. A tenth is one of 10 equal parts. A dime is 1/10 of a dollar. And finally, a hundredth. A hundredth is one of 100 equal parts. A penny is 1/100th of a dollar. So you'll want to hit pause and get that in. So let's take a look at a numeric representation of a decimal number, and you're going to recognize this very quickly as $4.56. This is a decimal number. Let's take a look at its parts. We'll go with your vocabulary. This, of course, is $4, 4 whole dollars. So we would say that this part in front of or to the left of the decimal is in fact your whole number. Okay, period right here. This is your decimal point. Here we have the first decimal number you're going to see. Here I have tenths. And you'll remember that a frame ago I told you that dimes are tenths. So if you are picturing this money, you should in your brain be seeing 5 dimes. Finally, we've got our hundredths right here. So we'll label that real quick. So with the hundredths labeled, I'm going to ask you to pause the video very quickly and jot this representation along with its annotations into your notebook. Now there's one really important thing that I need to show you, and it's how the word tenths and hundredths are built. Take a look. You're used to working with tens, but this isn't tens. This is tenths, which makes a huge difference. And this isn't hundreds with a DS. This is hundredths with a THS. And that, again, makes a huge amount of difference in the value of a given numeral. A 10 is 100 times bigger than a tenth. And it's the difference between having a $5 bill or 50 cents. And 100 is 10,000 times bigger than a hundredth. It's the difference between having $600 or 6 pennies. Here I have a picture representation of a decimal number. It's money. You're very familiar with that, have been since you were little. Money in the American system is a base 10 system. So it should be very easy to take this pictorial representation of a decimal number and write a numeric representation. How many dollars do you see? Oh yeah, 1. Simple enough. So we know we have 1 whole. So we're going to write 1. And my decimal point right here tells me there's more to come, but not a whole dollar. There's part of the dollar yet to come. How many tenths do I have? Well, I'm looking at 2 dimes, so that would be 2/10, and that's what I'm going to write next. And then finally, how many hundredths do I have? Well, I have 3 hundredths. Those are 3 pennies. And you probably already figured out, well, I didn't even do that on purpose, that when we're done, we have $1.23. Let's try a larger one. In this case, I have 3 wholes, 3 whole dollars. So let's annotate that and give it a numeric representation to go with our pictorial representation. I'm looking at 3 whole dollars. And then I'm looking at tenths. I see 6 tenths right there. So we'll write them in as that. And finally, I see 2 hundredths, 2 pennies. And that will be written like that. So this says $3.62, and you can figure that out pretty quickly. But it means there are 3 whole dollars, 6 tenths of another dollar, and along with that 6 tenths of another dollar, 2 hundredths. So we have 3 whole dollars and 62 hundredths of a new one. So today we answered the very basic questions of what are decimals and how do decimal tenths and hundredths work. Decimals are parts of a whole number. Decimal tenths and hundredths work just like the coins you've been using since kindergarten. This shouldn't be so bad. In the next lesson, we get into more of the nitty-gritty.